And welcome everyone to our September meeting of Women IT Pros. I am so incredibly excited to have Donna for this call. I got to see her at the Microsoft Women's Conference a couple years ago now, and it was one of those things where I sat in the front row and I was entranced, and I was using our internal Yammer, and I just made so many notes. It was one of those really awesome calls, and I still remember so much about that. So glad to have you all here today. We have the chat window going. It's usually the fun part. So,
Yeah.
feel free to keep the chatter going there. There may be some times when it's appropriate to come off mute. We'll let you know and say, hey, come join us, but definitely keep typing there. And we do have the tech community. There's a diversity in tech that Shauna set up for us there. So you can go over there, kick off some conversations, get the party going. And as I mentioned, I'd love to get you to do some intro here. So tell us what you do. You don't have to be an IT pro. We'd love to see everyone here, but it's great to find out. You might find somebody who's in the same field of work that you are. And I'd love to know your Twitter handle. I'd love to be able to follow you, LinkedIn profile, so we can connect on there. If you send me a LinkedIn request, if you mention hashtag WomenITPros, I will definitely accept. So where in general you live, maybe you're close by to someone, or maybe you're not close by, but maybe you're going to an event. So I will definitely be at Ignite, and we have some Women IT Pros plans coming up for that. I will also be at the Midwest Management Summit in May in Mall of America. So love to see some of you there. And if you are in the US, so I can easily mail you something, I will send you a Women IT Pros laptop sticker if you're going to go to an event so you can represent out there. Exciting news. We are expanding into Europe. My coworker, Tanya, is going to be starting off a European call. She's in Portugal. So watch for that. October 9th, the call information is up on the tech community site. And then next month on our US call, we have Laura Rogers, and she's going to teach you how to make things easier with Power Apps. You do not have to code to do IT Pro stuff, but knowing how to do things like Power Apps can definitely make your life easier. And we just had a fantastic call Thursday night. It was Thursday afternoon, Wednesday night for us here with the Australia, New Zealand time zone on speaking at events. And there were some tips there for women that I never would have thought of. So I'm not going to tell you what they are. You just have to listen to the recording when it comes out, watch the Twitter feed, and it will be there. Other announcements. So I mentioned Ignite. If you did not get a pass already, it is sold out, but they will be streaming. So check out the Diversity in Tech site and tune into those so you can watch them live as they're happening. And our call last month was about mentoring. So we do still have all the mentor information up there on the tech community. If you'd like to find a mentor, if you'd like to be a mentor, there's this great mentoring app now that makes it really easy. And so with that, I don't normally sit here and read the intro, but if you want to just take a look through this, somebody commented on the tech community site that just the intro alone made them want to come and join on this call. So without further ado, because I want to give Donna as much time as possible, Donna, thank you for coming, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Oh, thank you so much. This is so exciting because I think this is one of the most important communities for us just as a business and an industry to invest in, because there is so much opportunity for IT professionals, whether you're coder IT professionals or not coder IT professionals, to actually go and help your companies use tech in the most optimal way possible. You are actually the experts. You may not feel like that all the time, but you are in fact the experts. It is not your boss. Believe me, it is not your boss. The CTOs of stuff, not the experts. The IT pros who actually get their hands dirty and try all the configurations and deploying stuff, you are the experts. So I'm going to walk you through this thing that's been driving me crazy for about 17 years. I'm just admitting these people. I'm going to walk you through this situation, and I'm going to ask you a series of questions. And I would love for people to chime in the chat window if they feel this way, because it's so important that others see who else this resonates with. So, how many of you have ever felt like there's a mistake in the process somewhere, and you have gotten to where you are by accident? Just ever. Not necessarily this job, but ever. How many of you have felt this way? There's no deck being presented. We're just going to talk. And Eddie, yep. Yes, and yep. And Shauna and Gomo, and look at this, like there's some dudes on here and they feel the same way too every day. So as you can see, like look at all the people in the chat window. None of us feel like other people don't belong here. Just think about that for a second. All these people who are raising their hand and saying me, how many of you think that, yeah, you don't belong here? None, right? It is this perception we have of ourselves that we got lucky. There's a mistake in the process and we slipped in under the radar. But when you look around and the fact that all of these other people also feel that way, there's probably something here. There's probably something that's not reality, and there's some sort of distortion out there in the universe. So it's a pretty bad system if they let all of these people saying yes in by accident, right? This is like half the people on this call, if not more, are saying, yes, I feel this way. So that's a very, very, very poor system if they let in 90% of people by accident, right? We call that a very high failure rate. 10% success rate is not very good. So what does this mean? How does this happen, and why do people feel this way? So I'm going to walk you through the situation I was in. Years ago, about 14 years ago, I joined Microsoft, and I was tasked to run the MVP summit for the Windows Shell team. And my 2 cents was, what is MVP? I was new. It was week 1, and I'm a software engineer, so I have no idea what's going on. I'm tasked to run this MVP summit, and I had no idea what was going on. And my boss said, yeah, you can do it. Don't worry, you'll be great. And I was terrified. So I sought out this mentor of mine and went and had a chat with her. And she laughed at me for about 15 minutes and said, Donna, I told her I don't belong. I don't even know if I belong at Microsoft, much less running an MVP summit. I definitely am not qualified to do that. And she laughed at me and said, Donna, I run the Excel team. I said, yes, I know. That's why you're my mentor, because you're qualified and I'm not. And she holds up this patent cube for pivot tables. And she just gotten this patent cube, and her team had just invented this thing and filed the thing, whatever. And she said, I don't even know what pivot tables are for. I know that finance people love them. I have no idea why they love them. We made them. We have no idea how people are going to use them. I have no idea what I'm doing. Yeah, I've run Excel for how many years? And I'm looking at her pile of patent cubes. She has maybe like 85 patent cubes, you know, those mountains. And she's convinced that she has absolutely no idea what she's doing, and she's going to be found out at any moment. And she said, Donna, the secret is everyone feels this way, and they feel this way all the freaking time. So I said, that is weird. So I did some investigation, and it turns out that this is it's a successful person disease. And in fact, the more successful you are, the more you feel like, oh my gosh, I should not be here. I am unqualified, because you know that the work you're doing is actually hard. And this work is challenging, and you might feel like you're out of your scope and out of your element. And that's why they call it the CEO's disease. They say that every single CEO, like every CEO, Satya included, even people who start their own company, feel like I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no business doing this business. What am I thinking? And there was this amazing story. It's floating around. I don't actually know if this is true, but it feels like it would be true. So there's this amazing story that back in the day, when Bill Gates first started working on the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, right? Like they're running around the world doing clean water. There's that documentary on Netflix documenting some stuff. There's this story that when he was working at Microsoft, you know, tech guy, most successful person in the world, whatever. He and Melinda were thinking about this foundation, and he said, I have absolutely no idea how to start a foundation, and definitely not one for humanitarian purposes. This is something his mom actually really believed in and pushed him to do, is think about how do you use your wealth and privilege to make the world a better place. And he said, I have no freaking clue how to do that. And he said, if it wasn't for Melinda and my mom, this foundation would not exist, because I absolutely am not qualified to start and run this foundation on my own. So the fact that the richest dude in the world thinks that, and they're doing amazing work, the fact that he feels that way means that any one of us are allowed to feel that way at any moment, because feelings are feelings. You don't deny what you're feeling. It's okay. And often this is a thing that people feel ashamed of because their biggest fear is this. You go tell people, I don't think I'm qualified to do this. And they say, you know what, you're right, you're not. In fact, that never happens. It has never happened. We're convinced it's going to happen if we tell anyone. So that's why we have these hush-hush presentations on imposter syndrome, and people are like quietly raising their hand in their own office because we are so ashamed of feeling this way. We feel a deep sense of, I don't belong and I'm going to be ousted. So I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I would love for people to chime in as well. We did the first one, which is there's a mistake in the process and I slipped in under the radar. Lots of people said yes. Second one, I am not good. I'm not as good as the people around me. I'm not as good as my peers at what we do. How many of you feel that way? Yep. Okay, there you go. That's a lot of you who don't feel as good as your peers, right? There you go. Not as good as the people around me. Okay, next one. This one's funny. Oh, that good thing that happened to me, it was dumb luck. I was in the right place at the right time. How many of you feel like you were at the right place at the right time and it was just luck smiled on you that day and you got in and who knows how that happened, but it was dumb luck. Yep, there you go, right place. Look at all the people who are convinced you're in the right place at the right time. Believe me, you're not that lucky. It doesn't work that way, right? And then the last one, and this is my absolute favorite. Any minute now, someone's going to point to you and say, you don't belong here. Who let you in? Get out. We all feel that way. Yep. And we're like, we think some dude with a clipboard is going to show up, point to us and say, yep. We think someone's going to show up and point to us and say, you don't belong here. You need to leave. We're convinced that this is going to happen. And people say this working at Microsoft, working at this company, working at that company. I have a theater degree. I don't have a degree at all. It just happened to be that I got a job before degrees were required. I hear this stuff all the time. I hear it constantly. That, oh, thank God I was hired before all the scrutiny, before there's so many young people. It's just not true, people. Like, really, it's just not true. So here is what I do. Most people in the world actually feel this way. I have given this talk maybe 40 times at this point. I wrote this talk for TEDx actually, back in April, I think. And many of you on this call actually had to suffer through watching me make this talk and give it to you 10 times. And I gave it at TED. It was the first time I'd given it, and I was terrified because I had never given a TED talk before. And I had to give a talk on a topic that I knew nothing about. So I made it up. I made up this whole entire freaking thing. And I felt like an imposter giving a talk on imposter syndrome. So that was amazing. But you know what happened? 75% of this audience kept raising their hands. They're like, yep, I don't belong here. Yep, I don't feel like I'm as good as the people around me. I'm definitely going to be found out. I'm going to be ousted from here. I got here by luck. 75% of the TEDx audience thought this, who are some of the greatest high performers in the world. And then I've given this talk maybe 40 times, and between 75 and 90% of the audience raised their hand. It doesn't matter what room it is. I gave it to a group of CTOs. They all raised their hand. It's insane how people actually feel this way. So what do we do about it? Now that all of us feel like a bunch of imposters, what do we do about it? But we are all practical engineering, problem-solving types. So we're not going to just sit around and deal with these feelings and be like, oh, I don't feel good. Too bad. No, we're going to do something about it. Okay, we're going to solve this problem. So because I'm an engineer, I made a formula. And the formula works. If you do the formula works. So let's walk through it. Okay. Step one, what are you even impostoring about? Right? It's admitting it to yourself. What do you feel that you are not qualified to do? Is it your job? Is it being at this company? Is it leading a project? Is it leading a team? Is it starting a business? Is it starting a new initiative? What is it that you are feeling unqualified to do? No, we're not presenting anything. We're just talking. What are you feeling unqualified to do? So I'll tell you my thing that I'm going through right now, this second. I've been asked recently by some upper management village elder types to put some energy into business apps, right? The business apps that many of you actually know a lot about, and I don't know anything about. So these are things like Power BI, Power Apps, and Microsoft Flow. Now, I am a software developer. I live in Visual Studio. That is my world, and I have no idea what y'all are talking about. Someone's like, we need to focus on the Power Platform. So I said, what is that? So I wrote it down. And then I thought, Donna, don't think I'm actually qualified to do this, given that I've never worked in IT. I've never worked in a business where we use these except Microsoft. And I personally, Donna, don't really use them that much. So I don't feel qualified to, focus any sort of advocacy or energy into this area. And I definitely don't feel like I'm qualified to, build out a cohort of Windows insiders. That's the program I run to focus on Power Platform and Power Apps. No, not qualified. So what do you feel unqualified to do? Next step, once you understand what you're even impostering about, is to think about, what do you lose out on if you don't go and do this thing, right? So this is good. Yay, all of you who say you know what this stuff is, please reach out, because I'm going to be seeking life coaching from all of you. So once you understand what you're impostering about, the next step, step 2, is figuring out, what do you lose out on if you don't go and take this opportunity and do the thing? So I'll write that as well. Step 2, what do you lose out on? And don't think about what you lose out on now, but think about what you'll lose out on in the future, right? How will this affect your career and your plans? For me, if I don't do this Power Platform thing and don't focus on it, and I make someone else do it, I'm going to miss out on this huge opportunity and this whole huge market of people who use business apps in their company that they build themselves, that are not built by third-party developers or by professional devs even. They're apps that can be built by anyone in HR, finance, Power BI dashboards to look at all of the data from these apps, Microsoft Flow to automate some stuff. These are just things written on the website. I still don't know actually what's going on. So now, what will I lose out on? It's not understanding this huge audience of people. And honestly, I do believe that will hold me back and our team back if I don't go and deeply understand what the heck is happening. So third step is, what do others lose out on? And this can be hard for other people because they're thinking, oh, I don't know what others lose out on. But really, if the reason you've been tasked to or volunteered to or voluntold to do this thing is because it's obviously needed in the world. And even if that calling is coming from within, there's obviously a need in the world. And who are the people who are not being fulfilled because you are not doing this thing or you're having imposter syndrome doing it? For me, on focusing on this Power Platform thing, there are so many people in the world who have absolutely no idea that these tools exist or that how these tools can be used to make their lives and jobs easier. A lot of us here on the call are fully in the know, but there are millions of people out there who work at like banks in other countries who go and do like horrible manual processes all the time, not having any idea that Microsoft Flow or Power Apps can solve some of these problems for them. So once you understand what do other people miss out on, it's time for step 4. And step 4 is, I think, the most fun. It's time to break it down. So this whole thing, break it down. What do you feel qualified for to do? So out of this whole project you're thinking about, project, process, initiative that you're leading or working on, what do you feel qualified to do? So here's how I think about breaking stuff down. I think about it in terms of steps. I need to learn Power Platform. How do I do that? 1, go to powerplatform.com. 2, sign up for an account. Okay. 3, go do one of the tutorials on Microsoft Learn. Cool. 4, go share what I've made with someone. 5, reach out to other experts. These are the things, like just breaking it down. So when I think about what I am qualified to do, I am qualified to use a browser and go to powerplatform.com or whatever. I'm qualified to sign into the site if my badge still works, right? I am qualified to go to Microsoft Learn and do a tutorial. Yep, I can do that. These are all just time. Like, am I qualified to do them? Yes. Will I make time? I better. So make the time, do these things. And then once you go through all of the stuff that you are qualified to do, I know certain people to reach out to if I'm stuck, if I have no idea what I'm doing. I do know people to reach out to, namely a whole bunch of you. So next step, step 5 is, what are you not qualified to do? Generally, the things we're not qualified to do are things we've never done before, right? If you've never driven before a car, you're not qualified to drive. Why? Because you've never done it before. It's the same for everything else. Often we have this sense of imposter syndrome because there's a thing that we're not qualified for in the process. And we're completely convinced that the whole thing is a sham because we can't do this one part. For me, as it relates to business apps and such, I don't really know that many people who work in this space. I don't know a lot of people work in the space. I'm not sure what these apps are for. I've never worked in a company other than Microsoft where these apps are used. So Sean is absolutely right. What are you not yet qualified to do? So then, once you identify what you're not yet qualified to do, step 6 is, guess what? Who is qualified to do what you are not? So who is qualified? Start listing names, not like, oh, people. List names. Go do the research, figure out who is actually an expert in the space. So here's what I'm doing. I'm like, okay, Power Platform, cool. I started looking on Twitter. There's a whole bunch of people called Power Addicts. And these people seem to be like MVPs of the Power Platform. And they seem to make a ton of Power Apps. They tend to share their content, write blog posts. I'm thinking, okay, these people actually know what's up. So I'm going to reach out to them and see what they do. So I've been reading a ton of blogs and a ton of articles and looking at all these Twitter posts and LinkedIn articles by people who are power addicts, because they already know what they're doing and they already have a deep relationship in the community. And my job is to learn like them. So once I identified who are the people, next is step 7. Guess what? Do an experiment. Do the experiment and reach out to the experts. Do the experiment. This is me typing to the experts. So I reached out to a few people and I said, look, like Louise. Louise is a Power Apps expert living in Germany. And I said, Louise, I did the Microsoft Learn tutorial. I made my first Power App, which is this weird carpet floor app thing. I modified it a bit. I'm actually going to make my own Power App to make an Imposter Syndrome banishing spell, so that if anyone feels like an imposter, they can whip out in Power App and say, I'm on step 4. It's my vision. I haven't not made it yet. How the heck do I share it with others? I, for the love of God, feel like a dumbass that I don't know how to share it with others. I have no freaking clue. So what I'm going to do is reach out and ask a very specific question. So this is the secret to reaching out to experts. You don't reach out with a huge ask. You don't reach out like, hey, I'm learning about Power Apps. Can you help me? No, they're experts. They don't have time to do this. What they have time to do is answer a very specific question. So what I do with experts, I have a template, and I'm happy to share it with all of you after this. A template of an email that says, hi, I so admire the way you do X, whatever that is. I am doing an experiment, name your experiment, where I'm trying to do Y. I have a very specific question for you. Here's the question. So you just break it down into 3 steps. I so admire the way you do blah. I am doing something similar with this experiment. Here's a question. So for Louise, it was, hi Louise, I so admire the way you build Power Apps and engage this community. I'm doing an experiment to learn about Power Apps and make one of my own. 3, how can I get the community involved? How do I share this app with others? Very specific question. So when you reach out to experts like that, like specific, you will get a very clear answer very quickly. So you could do it via text, you could do it in person, you could do it via Twitter DM, or you could do it via a direct Twitter thing, you could do it via LinkedIn post. People are so much more likely to answer a very specific question because they're an expert. They're used to answering questions that actually want to feel useful. So once you're at this point, it is so, so important to not get overly creative and start comparing yourself to experts. A lot of people at this point are like, oh, Louise is so smart and I am so dumb, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, I think this is step 7. Do not compare, compliment. At this point, people get very creative and they're like, oh my God, I'm going to compare myself to this expert. Your day 1 is not going to be as good as someone else's day 1000, right? It's just not going to happen. No. It's if you are passing your driver's test today, you're not going to be as good of a driver as like a Forza driver. It's not happening. So instead of trying to compare yourself to the experts, you compliment them, you elevate them, you showcase them. So you figure out like, okay, these are the experts, they're amazing, and then you elevate them. I'm going to tell everyone like, Louise really helped me out, this tough problem I'm in, she is amazing, everyone should look to her. So I use all of my superpowers to amplify Louise and elevate Louise the best I can. So once you do that, 2 things happen. 1, you look super powerful because you're not, having this anxiety over, oh, I'm not good enough, low self-esteem, blah, blah, blah. And also you're kind of building your tribe. You're saying, Louise and I are similar. We are working on this thing and all of you should be too. So you're publicly building your tribe. So that's the way to tie yourself to powerful people without looking like, some sort of a poser, is amplify and elevate them. So once you do that, then it's really, really important that you figure out your thing. Like you figure out your niche. So I call it either being an and or figuring out your niche. So step, I guess 8, because I can't count. Your and or niche. So what does this mean? This means specifically, what are you going to focus on? Now, a lot of people are like, I'm going to be an expert at blah. We're like, that's great. What does that mean? So dig in deep and think about specifically, what is the problem you're trying to solve? So the way I think about it is being an and or being a niche. I am a software engineer, I'm an author, I'm a fashion designer, a speaker, and now I'm trying to be a Power Apps expert. Let's think about the and of these things. I'm a software engineer. I do a lot of like speaking to groups of people about imposter syndrome and doing the thing and getting out of your comfort zone. What makes sense is for me to combine these things that I do. I am building a Power App. Why don't I build a Power App to banish imposter syndrome? Why don't I build a Power App to help people get out of their comfort zone? Why don't I help people build a Power App to design like a fashion line? I should focus it on a thing that I already know a lot about. So it's very specifically niche to me, to something that I can do and I can do well. The other way works very well too, where say you want to become an expert in Excel. You're like, I want to be an expert in Excel. Okay, cool. What does that mean? I want to be an expert at making tables. I'm just making stuff up because I don't actually know Excel that well. I want to be an expert at making tables or charts and graphs. Okay, what does that mean? I want to be an expert at people who make the best charts for people who are dyslexic. Why? Because I'm dyslexic, and if I can make charts, other people can make charts. I'm not actually doing this, but that would be really cool if someone became an expert making charts for dyslexic people or colorblind people or blind people. So how do you make charts for people with, any sort of vision disabilities? But that's how you can think about building up your expertise, is really nail the niche, right? Once you nail the niche, you learn a lot about this industry, you establish yourself as a leader, and then you can expand. Then you can say, okay, cool. Now I'm an expert making charts for people with vision problems. Now I'm going to make charts for people who don't have vision problems. And what all have I learned and what community have I built? Okay, next is, I think this is step 10 for real, is what advice would you give someone? Write it down, and then do it. This became very obvious to me when I was yelling at someone this week, of course. I yell at lots of people. But this person came to seek counsel and they said, Donna, I'm in this space and I'm having to learn machine learning to look at like these big data sets. And I have no idea what I'm doing because I'm not actually good at math. I don't know I'm a C++ developer. I have no idea what's going on with this Python thing. No clue. So I kind of yelled at them and said, look, what are you talking about? You figured out C++ dev. You're an expert in that world. You can figure out this machine learning thing. Like, go figure out who are the experts. What are some projects you can start doing? What is a small win you can have, et cetera, et cetera. I gave them lots of good advice. And then I realized, like, maybe I should be taking this advice. So I wrote it all down. And then I gave that stern speech to myself and said, Donna, you're an expert in this other thing. You can figure this new thing out. You'll be fine. And none of us are born experts at the thing we're good at. We got that way by doing it a lot. That's all what being an expert is, right? It's doing it a lot until it becomes just kind of part of you. It's just doing it a lot. You're an expert at walking and talking and using Teams at this point, right? You didn't know how to do that on the first day, but because you did it a lot. And I don't believe in this 1,000 hours of practice bullshit. No, it really is doing it a lot soon. Right? If you decide you want to learn coding, you can't learn one coding lesson once a month. You have to do it every day. That's why those like 30 days of something or 30 hours of something, those things work really well because you're doing it a lot in quick succession before your muscles and brain have a chance to forget the thing you learned just like yesterday or 10 minutes ago or whatever it is. So give yourself the good advice that you'd give a friend and be kind to yourself the way you'd be kind to a friend. The way we talk to ourselves, like, you're a dumbass. Why did you not know that? You're so dumb. We would never say that to anyone in the whole world, ever. We would never, ever, ever say that to anyone else. We just wouldn't. And yet we treat ourselves like this all the freaking time. So that's why I think step 11 is really important. And this is one of my favorites, and no one does it enough. Create a textable tribe. So this is a group of people so let me tell you what this group is not. You want to create like a text message group, and it's private. It can be a Facebook group, a text group, a WhatsApp group, a WeChat. I don't actually care. But it's people who are reachable at all sorts of hours. And you need more than one person. You need at least two. So you know how all of us have that really, really understanding friend who's like, oh, that's okay, you'll figure it out at some point. You don't need those friends. What you need right now is the friend who will kick your ass. The friends who are like, get in the car, we're going, I don't care about your opinion, you're doing this, end of discussion. The ones that, Eddie's laughing because he's in my textable tribe. Anytime one of us starts to imposter, like 3 people in my textable tribe are in this chat right now. And anytime one of us starts to imposter, it's like, oh, I'm scared to give that talk at Ignite. We're like, that's nice. You're giving it anyway at, 6 o'clock on Tuesday. So that's the end of that. Or I'm scared to like go and do this new thing. That's nice. You're going to do it by tomorrow, or I'm going to make you do it. It's really, really important to have people who have zero issues pushing you out of your comfort zone. And the more friends around you have who are willing to push you out of your comfort zone, the better your life is going to be, honestly. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Don't ever doubt that, because it is 100% true. The 5 people who influence you the most, you are an average of those people. So up-level your game. If your crew, the people you roll with, are not particularly ambitious or that good at their job and you're trying to be, you got to change your people. Like, you just have to be. My life hack is hanging out with ambitious people. Because ambitious people never think that you are too ambitious or your thing is out of reach or anything like that, because they have ambitions of their own and they want to pursue them and they want everyone around them to be ambitious too. So hang out with ambitious people who are doing the thing, and you'll see that your behavior will change. It just does. It's kind of magical, but it has worked for me over and over and over again. You got to up-level your crew. See, Shauna says, I made her do the thing. I kind of bullied and blackmailed her into it, did I not? Yep. And if you're not in a position to change the people? Go make new friends. Like, just go make new friends. Go join a meetup group. Go volunteer at some organization. you don't have to change the people who you work with, that you're assigned to work with, but the people you spend a lot of time with outside work, you choose those people. You 100% choose them. And if they're not up-leveling your game, they're down-leveling your game. Just keep that in mind. Stagnancy is one of the worst things that happens to our industry. We're like, oh, the people around us aren't really trying new things or getting promoted or anything like that, so I must be fine. That's just not true. It's not true. You've got to up-level your game by going and changing your crew, right? You got to change your crew. So I highly recommend you go join a group, go to a meetup, attend a conference, just change the scenery. And you can also be a different person when you're around new people, right? There's no preconceived notions that others have. Often we struggle with imposter syndrome because people around us, especially people who live with us, they're the worst. They're like, oh, really? You're going to give a talk in public? Have you ever spoken in public before? Aren't you scared? People say shit like this, by the way. Like my mom, I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. Like, bless my mom, she's a wonderful person, but she told me, I recently started a fashion line, and I'm like, oh yeah, mom, guess what? This rental company ordered 50 pieces from us. She's like, wow, that's really nice of them. And I said, no, mom, that's not nice of them. It's just good business. And it's just good business. But she's like, wow, can you do it? And I said, yes, mom, I can do it. And if it wasn't for the people in my life who are in the fashion industry who've done this before, who are like, of course you can do it. What? You're not a moron. You'll figure this out. I really would have struggled with this. I would have impostered because the people who were in my life before, our moms or dads or siblings, maybe some best friends from childhood, maybe some, those kind of like gloom and doom coworkers, they hold us back. They, honest to God, hold us back. So once you build up this textable tribe, use the tribe. Tell them, confess like, hey, I'm impostering right now and here's why, and have them kick your ass. And the last step, and I think it's like step 13 maybe, is just keep in mind that sometimes you win and sometimes you learn. This may go amazing or it may be a disaster, but it's an amazing story. It's going to be a great story. So whether this power platform thing, I figure it out and then we have the best power apps in the world, yay, or whether everyone's like, Donna, you were so dumb, what is wrong with you? It's still a way better story than me telling upper management village elders like, you know what, I'm not doing it, I'm opting out. Nope. That's not a very good story. And I actually didn't learn anything. So either this will be a tremendous win or it will be an amazing learn. But one of those is definitely going to happen. So, ultimately, we may feel that we're unqualified. We may feel like we don't belong here. We may feel like we may be ousted at any moment. But you just have to do the thing, right? The fact that you're on this call investing in yourself is a sign that you are willing to do the thing. You just need a few steps and a few bit of guidance on how to do the thing. But I think all of you here are just screaming to get out of your comfort zone, because otherwise you wouldn't be spending an hour with us today. You'd be going and doing your job. You'd be, whatever you were doing. The fact that you're here, the fact that you're part of this community, and the fact that you're contributing in this chat window means that you 100% want this. So that's me, that's the story, that's the spiel. I invite you to use this spell however you choose, in doses, as prescribed, but keep in mind that this group of people that's in the chat window, they're part of your textable tribe if you want them to be. Because all of us have a very, very common value that Kathy and Shauna and all of you have brought us all together right now, which is we're all people who work in the tech industry who are willing to be a part of a community and willing to up-level our game. Thank you so much for having me. Do we have questions? There seem to be a bunch in the window. And I'm missing out on lots of stuff because I can't talk and read at the same time. But
I think most of it's just been conversation.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
But yeah, come off mute.
Come off mute. Sean, I love your 2 cents, and don't be convinced you don't have a tribe. You absolutely have a tribe. One easy way to find one is on Twitter, weirdly. I know Twitter can be like Satan's godchild sometimes, but I really did find my tribe on Twitter, and that's how Shauna and I got to be friends too, is via Twitter.
So I had a question with, sometimes you win and sometimes you learn, I think is a great way of looking at it. Mm-hmm. I know for myself, I've really had to do a lot of work in dismantling the terror of failure, not even fear, but like
Yes.
terror.
Yes.
Any thoughts on
that?
Dealing with that?
So what I do, and this is kind of woo-woo, but it actually works, is when I'm worried about something, like intensely worried, I journal it. I say, what are the 10 things that I'm worried about right now, right? Between 3 and 10. I just journal it. I date it. I put a date on the top of the page and I write it down. I am worried about blah. I am worried about blah. I am worried about blah. And because we're problem solving types, your brain's going to go into overdrive and come up with solutions to these problems. It's the weirdest thing, but it always works. I'm like, right now I'm really worried about, oh my God, how am I going to get all this? I have to give like 6 talks in the next 3 weeks, and I've written any of them, of course, as usual. How am I going to get all these done? One of them is to like the World Economic Forum. I don't know anything about economics. I have no idea what we're talking about. I don't even know what the World Economic Forum does. So I'm worried about these things. I wrote it down. And I start writing down the solutions. Your brain instantly goes into overdrive. But then, here's the great hack. In 2 weeks, look back. How many of those worries came true? Very consistently, it's going to be like one of them. And once you start realizing that you are worried for nothing or terrified for nothing, that fear starts to go away. And you stop trusting that, crazy animal brain thing, I don't know what it's called, that causes us to think about fleeing. You stop trusting that and you stop listening to it because you realize like so much of this is in your head and it has nothing to do with reality. But it really is writing it down. I have journals and journals full of worries and full of solutions. And then when I look back, I'm like, wow, I spent a lot of time worrying about this thing and it never, ever happened. Ever. But it really is the data to yourself. Like put it on the calendar, journal today, check journal in 2 weeks. Once you put it on the calendar and realize how ridiculous we are and what we worry about, it's pretty amazing, the things we worry about.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
Other questions? Come on, mute or type.
One person with calls. Yep. Problems are intense. They're totally opportunities. It's great.
Oh, Shona, that's hard.
Yep. Oh, it's so true. Shauna, it's so true. If you're afraid to try it, tell everybody. They'll make you do it. Like, they really will make you do it.
Donna, will you be available at MS Ignite for chats?
It's going to be super tight, but you can find me at, Shauna will tell me where to be. That's all I know. She's like the Humans of IT track. She's got me saying words, I think 2 of the days. So right after is the best time. The rest of the time is running around like a crazy person. Yep. But seriously, if you want to get something done, just tell some people. Tell people who are ambitious, who get things done. They will make you do it. And they'll show you how they do it. And then you'll learn. Really, if you change who you're around, you will change your mindset. It is fascinating. Other things. Oh yeah, those ERG groups are great. They do exist for everything. It's like people who are into like kayak yoga, group for that. Yeah.
Well, and I really see the WomenITPros thing as being a way that we can start to collect, kind of like our own little, resource groups on, yes, technology, location,
yep,
characteristics, anything, just trying to get more,
yep,
women to talk to each other.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And allies, right? So
yes,
one thing I found very useful is having allies who are very different than us. So we've got like a bunch of dudes on this call, and our dudes on this call, the ones I know, are excellent allies because they were like, you're worried about that? That's just weird, right? You should never even worry about that. Or they say, you know what? Yeah, I worry about that too. And you realize we're not actually that different, right? It turns out my fear of like, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get fired, is a universal fear amongst men, women, young people, older people. Universal fear, every country in the world, right? It's constant and it's universal. And it's actually incredibly reassuring to see that this is not a woman problem. It is That's why I give this talk to women, men, young people, because it is not a woman problem. In fact, I have more dudes, sliding into my DMs, asking me, hey, I have this imposter syndrome thing. What do I do? I'm like, well, you banish it. What do you mean? And because they feel like they have no one to talk to. They say, I don't know who to talk to about this. I'm so embarrassed. I'm so ashamed. And I said, oh, it's fine. Don't worry about it. It's just a mental block you have. It's not based in reality at all. You're in your head. You need to get out of your head. And here's how you do it. But it's everyone. And it is so important that we build allies with people different than us, because we realize new ways to solve problems, but also the issues we have, super similar.
Well, one of the things that sticks out for me is so much of this is about being specific.
Yeah.
Okay, what is the specific thing that
Right.
I feel like an imposter about? Because when we're so general, I think it's easier for fear to hide in those shadows. But when you get the spotlight on it.
Yes. It's so true. You have to be really specific. A lot of people are like, I don't feel qualified to work in IT. I'm like, which part? You don't feel qualified to get in a car and go to work every day? No. You don't feel qualified to swipe your badge and go in a building? No. You don't feel qualified to turn on that PC? No. Oh, it's this new tool they've introduced. I'm like, okay, so you don't feel qualified to use this new tool they've introduced or this new way of deploying a thing. That doesn't mean you're not qualified to work in IT. There's like 85 steps to this. You're not qualified to do one of them. Does not negate all the other 85. Learn that thing, and then you'll be qualified, right? We get really overwhelmed by things. We're like, just break it down. Break it down. In coding, we call it reduce variables. Like, reduce variables and say, these are all constants. I know how to do this. I know how to do this. I know how to do this. The only variable that I'm confused about is this thing here. So comment out all the other code and just focus on the one line that you're failing at or feeling unsure about, and just debug that line. It is such a dorky analogy, and I am so sorry about that. But that's the best way I can think of to explain it.
Yeah. Shona had an interesting comment. She said that somebody actually had told her that she was not qualified to be somewhere, but she persisted, and I love that.
Yeah.
So what do you do when someone says, yeah, you really don't belong here?
I'll be like, okay, I'd love to see your qualifications on how you decided that. How are you qualified to decide who is qualified and who is not? Right? So
Yeah,
it really is like,
too.
oh yeah, people say these things all the time. They're like, are you really good at being a dev? I'm like, yeah, actually, yeah. In those cases, just keep in mind that this is their own insecurity speaking. The people who say things like that are generally like, oh, I'm going to get found out. So I'm going to go and on the offense and try to, strike out at other people. But my answer to that is generally not kind. And I highly encourage all of you to not be overly kind to people who say these things to you, because they have no business doing it. You 100% belong in this industry. And if you even think about their words and internalize it, you're letting the opinion of some random freaking person who does not know you, who does not know your qualifications, affect your career. No way. Would you let, there's some crazy person on the street and then they tell you, you are evil and going to hell. Do you believe them? No, you don't. You keep walking, right? It's the same thing. One person's opinion is not going to make or break your career. It is not going to happen. It might be if this person's like your manager or something like that, then it's time to change jobs because they're obviously just not good for you. But if this is a random peer or someone in some other team or some other company, does not actually matter.
I think a lot of that is if I have some of that fear already and I feel like, they secretly know my fears.
Yeah. Nope.
But it's something that I'm not afraid about, then it's really easy to just say, no.
Yeah. No. You think people can read your mind? They can't. People can't even read their own mind. And we're convinced people can read our mind. No, they really, honest to God, can't. They don't even know what they're thinking. I know this only because I talk to people about this all the freaking time. No one knows what they're even thinking. They have no idea. So you can't let one person's random errant phrase or thing they said or came up with on the spot affect the way you live your life and the way you invest in your career. Like, no freaking way. And if people actually mess with you, like if they do, just send them to me. I will set people straight. I have no issue setting people straight. We have a lot of stern conversations with me yelling at people's managers and people who say dumb things to others. And I ask them the hard questions. So I see you've told this person this. Why did you say that? They're like, well, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that seems like a dumb reason. Let's debug that, right? Why did you have this dumb reason, et cetera, et cetera. So if someone messes with any of you, just send them to me. Seriously, I will set them straight and they will go running back home and never do it again.
Yeah. Shauna said in the chat window, you back it up with facts like, oh, actually, I created XYZ and supported blah, blah, blah customers and achieved XYZ. When you say it out loud to the naysayer, you will realize how powerful that is for your own confidence.
Yes, you do. And it's really important that you first of all know that information, and second of all, share that information, and third of all, just be like, if you have any other questions, I'd like you to come with a compelling argument that is better than this one, right? So challenge them right back. I'm a big fan of challenging right back. If someone challenges me, I challenge them right back. They're like, why do you think that you are qualified to do this? I'm like, why do you think you're qualified to do this? Why are you qualified to even ask me this question? They're like, oh, because I'm in charge of the blah, blah committee. I'm like, who said? They're like, blah, blah said. I'm like, okay, what are their qualifications for choosing you for the blah, blah committee? I want to see them. Is there a certificate? Is there like a coalition? Is there a board? I want to know. How did so-and-so get qualified to do this? So you can drive people insane with this. It's pretty fun. But challenge right back. I never fold. Like, it's my thing is I do not fold. And I am so terrible that most people just give up and go home. They're like, okay, you know what? Fighting with you is useless. I'm like, I know. They're like, you're impossible. I'm like, thank you. I work at it every day. I didn't just become impossible overnight. So
Jonah says, I actually tried sending people to Donna and I believe no one has actually contacted her because they were afraid.
Honest to God,
when I describe people to Donna, I say she is fierce.
There's a bunch of nonsense going on. And I told Shauna, if someone messes with you, you send them to me. And 0 people, Shauna, have reached out. Like, actually 0. And I knew they wouldn't because they're like, you know what? This is just going to lead to endless, like, talking about nothing. And we're just going to back off. But if you have no issue challenging, because what's the worst that can happen? You're going to lose. If you don't challenge, you've lost anyway, right? So challenge it. It's really scary to challenge others, but people hate confrontation. And as soon as you showcase that you have no fear of confrontation, the other person backs the heck off because they're like, oh, I don't really want to get into this fight. What they want is to win. But if they know that you're up for the fight, they will back off. It is so important to not be afraid of throwing down the challenge back. Like, none. Don't ever fold. If someone's like, do this and you don't want to, don't fold. Make it clear that it's not going to happen. It's the best way to move the boundary away from you and toward them. Like, my boundaries, these are my boundaries. I am defining them, not you.
Brilliant. Anna has a great question. Anna, do you want to come off mute? Or
yeah. Thanks for hosting this. I guess one of the things I often hear when people have imposter syndrome is that they don't have the time to do the thing. They're just completely overwhelmed and they don't know how to break down the mountain. And even that thought process just seems overwhelming. So how do you encourage people to invest the time? Because it does require time.
Yep, it does require time for sure. And the key is you must let go some of the old ordinary world, right? You're the hero on this journey, and the only way you're going to get into this brave new world that you want to be in is you have to let go of the ordinary world. And that's challenging because you have to let go of friends that are holding you back. You have to let go of some tasks that may not need to get done. There's lots of tasks that need to get done, but so my hack, and this is, managers hate this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I just stopped doing everything for a period of time. And you see there's really 3 categories of things. There's the ones where everything's on fire and everyone is yelling and no one did anything about it. That is the category of stuff you should actually be working on, right? It's important and no one is doing it. That's one category. Second one is It caught on fire, everyone is screaming, and someone picked it up. Great. They should be working on it. And the third category, no one noticed and no one did anything about it. Why is anyone doing that category? Right? So like right now, as I'm learning this Power Platform thing, there's a whole bunch of stuff in my other job that I've just stopped doing. I'm like, you know what? I'm just not going to do these and see what happens. And in fact, no one has noticed, which is fascinating. And the things that people have noticed, there's others who are picking it up. Like I just stopped going to this one meeting. There's no reason for me to sit here for 90 minutes a day looking at these OKRs. And no one has noticed because I actually don't need to be there, it turns out. Right? So there's so many things that we do that we don't need to do. And once we reclaim our time and say, you know what, you say on purpose with great purposeness, I am going to go and invest in this thing over here. To do that, I am going to let go of this because this other thing, new thing, is just more important. And is there someone else who should be taking it or do we let go of it? And it's investing. You're investing. So phrase it like that, even to yourself. It really does help. And you have to let go of, you know, some of the people. One of the things that's the most time consuming is people. People want to meet with us for things, right? I want to meet with you for an hour. I want to meet with you for 30 minutes. I want to meet with you for 15 minutes. And the answer is, why? What do you want to meet about, right? And if they can be very specific about their ask, do it over Teams, do it over the phone. And if they can't, if it's like, oh, it needs a conversation, great. Shorten the time requested by half. So my thing is, if someone's like, they want 30 minutes, I'm like 15, that's all I got. And then it's like you block your time and then you go and invest in coding or whatever you're investing in. So I believe that time is the most precious commodity we've got, by far, more important than money. So I protect my time like no one's business. Like, I protect it more than I protect money. If you had 24 hours, $24 a day to live on, believe you me, you'd be living way better, right? Yeah, you have $24.
Hey, Donna, I want to get in one last question since we've just got one more minute here. So David James, who is a fantastic ally of ours, asked, what is the best way to support or help without getting in the way when people are taking away the voice of others?
What is the best way to support without getting in the way? Oh, I see. Yeah. I'm a big fan of amplification rather than saying the original thing, right? So I am an ally to LGBTQ. But I'm not going out there writing articles about the plight of LGBTQ people, right? I'm not the one giving talks on it. I'm not doing any of these things. Instead, I amplify. I say, listen, I'm learning a lot from this person. Listen to this person. It's learning a lot from, not competing with, right? So actually a real scenario is neurodiversity, where Shauna's asked me to lead a panel for neurodiversity at Ignite, Big Ignite Orlando. I am not neurodiverse, but someone on my team is, and some people in our community is. Rather than me saying, this is neurodiversity, and I'm going to talk about this now to all of you, and here's some quotes from people who have it, we're doing a panel. And I'm just doing it in the style of, I am Donna. I am a manager of someone who is neurodiverse. I also manage the Insider program. Many people are neurodiverse. I have lots of questions. Let me ask them in front of this audience so the experts can answer, and I can just facilitate this. So it's facilitating and amplifying more than it is trying to maintain the spotlight. It's more like waving the spotlight at others rather than trying to be in it yourself. Is that the question, or did I just go off on a tirade for no reason?
Well, I was thinking also it could be about, you know, when you see somebody not being a good ally, how do you support?
That's when you push them out of the spotlight and say, you're being a bad ally, stop doing it. Instead, do this, right? Give them the instead, because many people, their heart's in the right place. They just don't know what to do. So I say, hey, instead of you doing this, you may want to try that. I think it'll resonate better. Just give them an else. People like an else. People don't like, oh, that's not going to work. What does that mean? Instead, try this.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. We are out of time, but Donna's definitely going to be at Ignite, and Shauna has just a fantastic program happening there. So, and Shauna, it's all streamed, right? Everyone can tune in real time. So, join us there, join us virtually, join us on these calls. Love to see you again. Our next call in October is all about Power Apps. So we're going to have Laura Rogers, who's an MVP, and she's going to demystify things for you. So show up for that. And thanks everyone for being here today.
Yep. All right. Thank you all so much for this. I will see you somewhere in the world, Ignite or the tour or somewhere. Talk soon. Bye.
And we're done.
Perfect.
Did it turn off? Or did it just look like it turned off? Oh, Teams, we love you. No, okay, it had turned off.
But you're an expert on Teams, Kathy. You know you are.
Kathy, you're an expert on Teams. Awesome.
I am learning tricks of it.
Yeah. This was super fun. I loved it. Kathy, do you mind sending me the next month's one? Because I really do want to hear Laura talk about Power Apps. Because I have to learn these.